Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the live stream today. My name's Phil, and you're watching the IELTS Grind channel. So today we're going to be talking about another task 2 writing for the IELTS, and today we're going to be talking about the discussion essay. So before we get started, just if you're joining me, don't forget that you can leave a comment in the live chat, and if you're interested in having an essay marked by either me or Michael, you can send an email to corrections@the IELTSgrind.com and we will do that for you, and we may do that live on a live stream. So I'm just kind of making sure that everything's working. Let's make sure that the live stream is actually live. So if anyone is joining me, make sure that you say hello in the chat and we'll get started. Okay, so we've got this discussion essay here, okay? And what we're going to do together is look at the discussion essay and decide how exactly we should answer it. So we've got the question here, okay? So it says, some feel governments should invest in preserving minority languages, while others feel this is not a good use of resources. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Okay, so this is the essay. Hey, Marish, hello, thanks for joining us today. So we are looking at this essay, and it's a discussion essay. Now, how do we know that exactly? Well, the clue is always in this part of the essay. So the actual question part could be exactly the same, but if we were to change this part of the task, it would change the type of essay that we have to write. And well, there's no secret, we are talking about discussion essays today. But what does that mean? The question we need to ask ourselves is, how many things do we need to talk about here? Okay, how many things do we need to talk about? So you can put your answer into the live chat, and I will kind of wait around for you to answer if you want, because there is a delay between what I'm saying. But this is the important thing. When you're answering a question in the IELTS, you need to look at this part and ask yourself, what exactly do I need to do? What is the essay structure that the examiner is hoping to see? Because if you don't write the correct structure, you're not going to get the grade you want in task response. Remember, there are 4 parts of the essay that you're graded on: task response, how well did you answer the question; coherence and cohesion, how well did you put your ideas together and how easy is it to understand you; and lexical resource, which is vocabulary; and then of course grammar. Okay, so how many things do we need to talk about here? Well, it says discuss both views, so that's 2 things right there. We have to talk about one view, which is some feel that the government should actually invest money into preserving these languages, and the second view, people think we should spend money on something else. So there are 2 things just there. Discuss both these views. But there's also give your own opinion. So in this essay, there are actually 3 things that we have to do. And that really tells us how we should structure the essay. So let's talk about the structure. So, and Marish, if you have any questions at any point, leave me the question in the chat. There will be a bit of a delay between you writing it and me seeing it, but I can answer anything that you would like me to talk about. Okay, so the structure. The structure is very much based on this idea that we have 3 things to talk about. Okay, so every essay is split into 3 parts: introduction, the body, the main part, and conclusion. Every single IELTS essay you write will be split into those 3 things, and pretty much any essay you write at university or anything like that will be the same. Now, the introduction. We recommend you write 2 to 4 sentences. You can absolutely write an introduction in 2 sentences, but you might also need to spend a little bit more time to explain a few things. So 4 sentences maximum. Don't spend too much time on your introduction. You want to put most of your work into the body of the essay, because this is where you're most likely to pick up the points that you need for your grade. So I recommend 2 sentences, sentence 1 and sentence 2 in the introduction. I don't know whether that's a capital, but there you go. Okay, so sentence 1, you need to give the context to the reader, the examiner in this case. What I mean by the context is to explain the major topics of the essay, the major things that we have to talk about. So basically, you rephrase the question. And when I say rephrase the question, I mean this part in pink or red. Is that pink, red? You tell me. So this part you have to rephrase. You have to say the same kind of ideas but in a different way. Okay? And luckily for the second sentence, you can write the same thing every single time that you have a discussion essay. Okay? You can write something similar. So sentence 2, you have to give your thesis. This is basically what you are arguing, and you should always write something very similar to this. In this essay, I would discuss both these views and give my own opinion. Okay? You can change it a little bit. You might say, in this essay, I will discuss both these perspectives and give my own point of view. In this essay, I will discuss both sides of this argument and also give my own thoughts. You can change it a little bit, but it's very straightforward. Tell the examiner exactly what you are going to do in the essay. In this essay, you're going to discuss both the views and give your own opinion. Now, remember, this is a discussion essay. If you're giving an opinion essay, which is a very different type of structure, for the opinion essay only in the IELTS, in this second sentence, your thesis sentence here, only for the opinion essay, you should write your opinion in the introduction. But for the other types of essays in the IELTS, like this one, a discussion essay, you should definitely write what I've got here. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I see what you're saying, Marish. No, just like I said, you don't write your opinion in the introduction for a discussion essay. Now, why is that? If we consider an opinion essay, everything you write in an opinion essay is about what you think, your opinion. Everything in that essay. So it makes sense that you would write your opinion at the beginning, give evidence for your opinion, and then conclude with your opinion again. But for this type of essay, it tells us to discuss both views and give your own opinion. If you were to give your opinion at the beginning, there would be no point discussing the other points of view because you already said what you think. Instead, what you have to do is like a real academic paper where you present all the evidence, all the findings, all of the points of view. Then you conclude with a summary. In this case, your summary is your opinion. So this is why we do not recommend that you write your opinion at the beginning. It's just not logical for this type of essay. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, great. So I'm talking a lot because there's a bit of a delay, but this is something that a lot of students mix up. So it's a good idea to talk about it for a long time. Okay, so that's your introduction. Your body paragraphs, there should be 2. And in the first paragraph, you discuss one of the points of view, viewpoint 1, for example. And what you basically have to do is to give at least one main idea, so one reason why someone would think that point of view. Not what you think, but why someone else thinks that. Okay? And within that paragraph, you should give supporting sentences. Explain, expand, and examples of the main idea. This is the basic structure. It is possible to give more than one reason, but as long as you give one reason in a paragraph, it's okay. The key thing here is to expand on what you're saying. These are supporting sentences, okay? So I will be giving you a model answer at the end, but we're just talking about the structure here, okay? The second paragraph is almost the same, but it talks about the second viewpoint. And again, you give at least one main reason why someone would think that, and you give supporting sentences. Okay? And then the conclusion, this is where you write maybe 2 to 4 sentences again. So you're looking at 2 to 4 sentences in your introduction, 2 to 4 sentences in the conclusion, and possibly 4 or 5 sentences for each paragraph in the body. It really depends how quickly you can write. Okay, but the conclusion, you want to write 2 to 4 sentences. You want to give your own opinion and why you think that. So some things to include in your conclusion. Okay. Firstly, I recommend always start your conclusion with the phrase "in conclusion." Now, it may be very, very boring for you to write hundreds of essays and always start with "in conclusion." But the examiner will only read one essay from you. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're bored. You may be bored about it, but I would recommend always write "in conclusion." The reason for this is that it clearly tells the examiner that this is your conclusion. And the one thing to remember about examiners is that they are very stupid. If you don't tell them exactly what you're doing and exactly where you are in the essay, they don't know. So always treat examiners like complete idiots. And this is why we write "in conclusion." It's very clear. Okay. And the other thing you want to do is to say something like this. Say that both viewpoints are good ones. There's a good phrase for this where you say both these views have their merits, or both these views are valid. So this is a good way, it's quite an academic way of saying, you know, it's a good argument, but I just favor this argument. You're not saying the other people are stupid and I'm clever because I think this. We don't do that in academic essays. So this is a nice little way of doing that, to make it a little bit more balanced, a little bit more academic, okay? And also clearly say what you think. You need to use the word I, okay? You want to say, I think, I believe, in my opinion. Make it very clear that you are now giving your opinion, because if we go back to our introduction, if you say in your thesis, in this essay I would discuss both these views and give my own opinion, but then you come to your conclusion and you don't say what you think, then you haven't done what you said you would do in your introduction. You will get a lower mark in task response. This is the part of the grading that says how well did you understand the task, and also it will affect your coherence and cohesion because it doesn't fit together. And the other point for the conclusion is briefly summarize why you think that opinion. Why do you have that opinion? And the reason you have that opinion is because the main idea or ideas that you wrote about in the body. Don't give your opinion and say it's for reasons that you have not mentioned in your essay. Okay? So it's basically everything is going to link up nicely. Okay? And the other point is, when you're giving your reasons, don't mention the main ideas from both paragraphs. Okay? Because I would always recommend you either strongly agree with one point of view or the other. Don't try and make everyone happy. It's harder to write. Okay? Everyone happy with that so far? If you have any questions, don't forget you can leave a comment in the chat. I'm looking at the chat here, and I will answer your questions as they come up for me. And also, don't forget, if you look above my head, there's an email address. If you would like to send some samples of your writing to us, we will correct that for you. We will do it live and we'll give you some live feedback. But you can get two native speakers who are teachers who have taught the IELTS for I've done it for over 4 years now, and Michael's done it for about the same time. We know what we're talking about, and you can get that for free. So if you want to send an email, corrections@IELTSgrind.com, and we will correct task 1, task 2, general IELTS or academic IELTS. We're happy to help. Okay, so let's talk about planning. Okay, so hopefully for those of you that are watching live, you will put some ideas into the live chat. This is going to work a lot better if you give me some ideas. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to plan an essay like this. How would you do it in the exam? Okay. So we've got the same question. And the first thing we want to ask ourselves is this: what are the main ideas or topics to talk about? So this is particularly with the context. So what's the big topic? What's the specific issue within that big topic? Okay. So I'll just remind you, it says some feel governments should invest in preserving minority languages, while others feel this is not a good use of resources. Okay. So I'm going to help you out with the big topic. Okay. The big topic is this. Oh, can't see my keyboard. Government spending. Government spending is the big topic because it's what the government should invest in, how they should use the resources. That's what I mean by the big topic. So as long as I'm talking about government spending rather than laws, or rather than maybe talking about building houses or elections or politics, that would not be relevant to this question. It's all about tax money, what the government spends the tax money on. But what is the specific issue? What is the idea within tax money, within government spending, that I have to concentrate on? Does anyone know? If you want to leave a comment in the live chat, I'll give you a few minutes. So the reason why this is important to identify is when you're planning your essay, you want to make sure that all of your ideas are connected to the question. If you can clearly identify this, hello Regha, thank you for joining us. So if you can clearly identify this at the beginning, you're going to get a good score in task response because everything you write is on topic. Okay, I see this a lot with students. They kind of they talk about things that are closely related, but not exactly the right issue. Okay, so the big topic here is government spending. I must concentrate on what the government spends its money on. But what is the specific issue? The main focus? Any ideas? Okay, so I don't know if it's because there's a long delay from what I say and the chat, but I'm going to put it in, okay? It is actually this here, minority languages, okay? So what are minority languages? Well, in many countries, you might have an official language, and then there are smaller groups of people or people who have lived there for a long, long time, and over time, their languages get replaced. So this happened in the UK. It happens in many different countries around the world. Some famous examples are Italian and French. Up until only a few hundred years ago, and in Italy only 100 years ago, not many people spoke Italian. And in France, the same thing. Not many people spoke French, which is actually from Paris, that area of France. So these other languages get replaced. So that's what we need to talk about, okay? So we're going to brainstorm some ideas, okay? So what you want to do is to come up with as many ideas as you can for why someone has one viewpoint and why someone has the other viewpoint, okay? So let's just remind ourselves what that is, okay? So some people feel the government should invest in preserving minority languages, okay? So this is the first viewpoint, okay? Let's put that in green. And gone past my essay. And the others feel that it's not good use of the resources, okay? So let's get the column back up, and this is the other point of view. Let's put that in blue for now, okay? So what you would have to do, let me get my camera back up. For some reason it doesn't want to show my face. Okay, so what we have to do is to try and come up with as many ideas as we can about these two viewpoints, because some of them will not be good ideas for the essay, okay? Sometimes we can think of an idea, but we don't know how to develop the idea, okay? So have a look at these questions, and I want you to suggest reasons why somebody would think this thing, okay? I will put in a few ideas, but as we go along, I'm looking at the live chat. If you have any ideas, don't forget, you can interact with me. I'm here live, and we can talk about this together, okay? So let me put a few ideas down, okay? So some feel governments should invest in preserving minority languages, okay? So I'm going to put down a few ideas and explain them as I go. So I think, loss of culture. So the idea here is that languages and culture are very closely connected. If you lose some culture, lose some languages, you're going to lose connection to that culture. Yeah, so yeah. Marish, I stole your idea. I'm so sorry. We had the same one, yeah. So that's it, yeah. Culture is a kind of an obvious one here. I'm going to go for guilt. What do I mean by guilt? Well, we could argue that for many cultures around the world, when a minority language is suppressed, when it's the people that speak it are forced not to speak it or encouraged not to speak it, it's normally because the government made it happen. I spoke about France and Italy before, and that happened. The school system, they weren't allowed to speak their local language. They could only speak French. So perhaps in the modern day, the governments feel guilty about what they did in the past, so this is a reason for people to preserve the languages. So guilt could be one. So can we think of any other ideas? Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes we can only think of one or two. Yeah. So what else can I think about? So if some feel that governments should invest in preserving minority languages. This could be an interesting one. We could talk maybe about health benefits. So why would I talk about health benefits here? So the connection is, in some languages they have traditions of healing people, and they have a lot of knowledge about how to heal people with herbs, with plants, and that information is within the language, within the people that speak that language. And if we lose people that speak the language, we lose all of that knowledge. But I'm concentrating on health there, really. So can I think of any more? It's a difficult one. Apart from culture and guilt, I'm not sure. Literature. Okay. So is this the idea that, literature. So this is the idea that within the written word, we could lose access to that if people don't speak it. For example, Latin could have very easily have become a dead language because the Romans, they don't exist anymore. But because people adopted the language, we kept the literature, and that is where most of Western history comes from. Yeah, I think literature is a really good idea. Okay, so can we think of any other ideas? I think we've got 4. That's pretty good. It's much more than we need. We can go through and select the best one. Okay, so if you can think of an idea 5 for the first viewpoint, you can put it into chat. Marish is doing a much better job than me at the moment. But let's have a look at the other point of view in the meantime. So, why would some people feel that it's not a good way to spend resources? So, I think we could talk about this in terms of jobs. So, the idea is, if you've only got a little bit of money to spend, would you spend it on teaching someone a language that is dying, or would you teach them perhaps a global language? So maybe an international language, okay, like English, for example. Maybe that would be more useful for a person to get a job. That could be an argument for that. What else could we talk about in terms of why people think it's not a good resource? Well, I mean, we are talking about a minority. So maybe the argument is only a few people use it. The money, that is, it doesn't benefit everyone. So they would rather the money spent on something that benefits everyone. That could be an argument for it. What else could we say? Why would someone think it's not a good use of resources? We might say perhaps that, well, it's kind of to do with jobs. We could say, well, can we say that to do with the economy? I think that's maybe as jobs. Again, I think that's the best idea I can think of. Jobs. If you teach people to have jobs, they can make money. It's good for the economy. I think that's one idea. So, yes. Okay, so I think that's a good idea. So, yeah, as Marish said, there are things that are more important: poverty, health, investing in other things. I think that's things. So I like the idea of health and poverty. Yeah, I think these are good arguments. So the idea here is, as quickly as you can, you come up with 2, 3, 4, if possible 5 ideas, and then you go through and you think, can I think of a particular example of that? So let's go let's just go for the top one. So we had loss of culture, we had literature, I like that one, and for the other side we had things are more important. So let's do that. Health and jobs. Okay, so I would do this for all of the points that I can as quickly as I can in the exam, in my head or writing on the back of the exam paper. So we want to think of specific examples. So loss of culture. Can I think of a specific example of when culture was lost? Is that something that I can think of? So I'm trying to think from the UK example. So we had this. So there's the island of Man. So this is a small island. It's off the coast of England in the Irish Sea between England and Ireland, and they have, we call people from the Isle of Man Manx, and it was a culture based on Vikings originally. About 1,000 years ago, Vikings invaded and they set up a community there, and they have a culture very much connected to Scandinavian culture traditionally. They have their own government and things like this, but the language Manx, it died out about 50 years ago. So this is an island that is no longer that special because no one actually speaks that language. People don't know much about the traditions. So this would be my specific example of loss of culture. Try not to be too general here. Try to actually come up with a real example. If you can, that is a good argument. That is a good point to mention. If you can't think of something specific, then it's probably not going to be a very strong argument, even if the point you're making is really, really good. So this is the thing we've got to think about for literature. Is there a specific example we can think of where a minority language was lost and the literature was lost? Is there an example we could think of for that? I can think of one, but I wonder if you will come up with the idea in the chat. What do you think? A specific example of when there was loss of language and it meant we lost literature in some way, or the ability to read certain books. Any ideas? I can think of something connected. I don't know. It's called Rosetta Stone. So the example here basically is to do with Egypt. So the written style of Egypt for ancient Egyptians, they used pictures really instead of words, and no one could read it for a long time. And then in the 1930s, I think, they found this stone, which I think is actually in the British Museum. Probably shouldn't be in the British Museum, but it is. And it had Greek, it had Egyptian hieroglyphics, it had different languages all written. It was the same laws. And with this, they were able to translate between different languages. So I think there could be a specific example of this. Loss of a language, leading to loss of literature, only to be found with the Rosetta Stone. That's the only thing I can think of for that. Okay, so things that are more important, health. Okay, so I think if we're talking about this, the obvious example is COVID-19, talking about the fact that right now we'd rather spend money on preventing the spread of COVID-19 rather than learning an ancient language or lost language. Yeah. And then for jobs international, I would say we could talk about this idea of a brain drain. So I live in Taiwan, where many young people, they actually don't stay in Taiwan to work. They go abroad because they get paid better. And that's called a brain drain, when many of your most skilled individuals, they go and they go abroad. It's called a brain drain. And this could be an excellent example for why an excellent example of why learning a language is a good thing, but maybe not learning an ancient language or a minority language like Taiwanese. Better to learn English or another language so you can go abroad. Okay, so when you're planning all this, make sure that you come up with specific examples for your main ideas. If you come up with a really good idea but you can't actually develop it, then it's not a great idea for your essay. Okay. Hey, welcome. Okay, so we have been talking about this. Now, if you want to actually come and look at this, we've put the link to the document. It's in the description, but if I'm clever, I can also put it into the chat. So this is open. You can come and look at this. You can also, if you want to write your own version of this, you can do that and send it to the email address which is above my head, which is my little face disappeared again. You can have a look at that. It's corrections@IELTSGrind.com, and you're very welcome to write an essay, send it to us, and we will correct it for you and give you an idea of what band score you would get. Okay, so now we're in the planning stage. So we've come up with some ideas. Why would someone think that? Okay, so we're looking at choosing an opinion. This is before we write. Before you start writing, you need to know everything you're going to write. Okay. Yeah, so the essay correction email, you can see it on the screen above my head, corrections@IELTSGrind.com. It's also in the description, but I will write it. The IELTSGrind.com. It's also in the chat. Feel free to send any task 1, task 2, any question you like. Just include the question so we know what you're writing about. We'll be happy to help you with that. Okay, so choosing an opinion. Here are 3 tips. Tip 1. Choose the essay that is the easiest to write, not the one you personally believe in. Okay, remember the IELTS Grind, the IELTS Grind is a YouTube channel. The IELTS is basically a test of your English. It's not a test of your morals. It's not a test of your ethics. It's not a test of how intelligent you are. It's just an English test. You can get a good mark in your writing by doing something in the easiest way. So the easiest essay to write is the one where you can develop the ideas the easiest. You may have a really good argument, but if you can't think of specific reasons why that is connected to the rest of the essay, it's not a very good idea. You may come up with an idea that you don't personally believe in, but you can think of lots of examples for. Write that one instead. Forgive yourself later on. Okay, tip 2. Choose ideas which you can explain the best, not the most interesting ones, okay? So make it as easy on yourself as you can. And tip 3, never start writing until you know what you're going to say. The worst thing to have in the IELTS writing exam is a good idea halfway through your essay. The examiner can tell when you suddenly change what you're talking about. So make sure you write a plan before you start writing. Give yourself 2 or 3 minutes and stick to the plan. Even if you come up with a better idea, it will be much better for you to stick to the plan. New ideas just make everything not match up. This is especially true if you're writing by hand. Okay, so a little model answer, something for you to copy, something for you to steal any sentences that you think are good and adapt it for yourselves, okay? So this is a model essay that I wrote with some of the ideas we actually came up with. Now, I have to say that, Merish, your ideas are much better than mine, so maybe you could have a go at writing this, send it to us, and you can show how much better you are than me. Okay, so let's remind ourselves of the essay, the question. Some feel government should invest in preserving minority languages, while others feel this is not a good use of resources. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. So, in my introduction, I have got 2 sentences. So I've written this as a native speaker, so sometimes the vocabulary might be a little bit high level, or the way that I structure things may be high level, but you can learn to adapt the sentences and the vocabulary for yourselves. So, with the annual loss of languages across the globe rising, officials are feeling the pressure to mitigate this loss by some groups, while others feel these funds could be better allocated. In this essay, I will explore both these points of view and give my own perspective on this issue. So again, you can go and have a look at the document. The link is in the chat, the link is in the description. You can come and read this yourselves if you want. So what I've done is I've explained the big topic. Officials are feeling the pressure. This is referring to the government. Annual loss of languages is the idea that we're talking about languages, minority languages. And I've also got the idea that it's opposing ideas. Some people think this, some people think something else. This is important to set up my next sentence, where I just give my thesis. I will do this. I will talk about both these points of view, and I will give my own opinion. Okay, so moving on to the body. The first paragraph is going to be about one point of view. Let's see how well I did. Language is tantamount to culture, and thus some strongly feel its loss is a tragedy for entire nations. One of the most alarming effects of allowing minorities to forget their mother tongue is the associated loss of historical knowledge. By this I mean many ethnic groups pass down their traditions, including history, through poems and songs. When the next generation becomes ignorant of their ancestors' language, they can no longer access the depth of wisdom and practical knowledge from the past. For example, in the UK, the island of Man, I don't think that should be capitalized, that's my mistake. The island of Man once had its own language, Manx, which died out in 1974, meaning all its traditions have also been lost. This wouldn't have happened if the local government had insisted young people learn this language. Okay, so let's go through this. What did I do? Well, the first sentence here is a topic sentence. I'm telling the reader which of the three things, so I've got three things to do. I'm telling the reader which of those three things I'm talking about. So language is tantamount to culture, and thus some strongly feel its loss is a tragedy for entire nations. So this is obviously talking about the first point of view. Okay. And as I go through, I introduce one of the main ideas, which is the loss of historical knowledge. Now, I love history. I'm a history geek, so that's why I wrote it. But I go on and I explain what I mean by losing history and why it's connected to losing languages in the next paragraph. And then I also give, which is important, a clear example, a specific example of what it is. Manx, is it a local dialect or jargon? It wasn't jargon, because jargon is more vocabulary to do with, for example, you might have jargon in a particular job where you have certain words that mean certain things. No, Manx was possibly a dialect, but it was closer to Scandinavian than to English, I would say, because that island was invaded by Vikings 1,000 years ago. So I think it was its own proper language. I'm not sure. I was born in 85, so it was long gone by the time I was born. But good question, thanks. So the important thing I did, and I almost forgot to do this, so I'm going to highlight this. This wouldn't have happened if the local government had insisted young people learn this language. Okay, so what I did here at the end is I remembered to link it back to the officials. Okay, because it's talking about government in the question. Okay, so by adding this sentence at the end, I've remembered what we're talking about, and I've brought it back to the attention of the reader. Now, if I had actually not written that, I would have got a much lower mark, I think, because it wouldn't really be relevant. I was getting too far away from it, yeah. Okay. So, let's go and look at the next one. Okay. Paragraph 2 of the body. Despite the importance of preserving cultural practices, others would say a limited annual government budget should be prioritized for other projects. So again, topic sentence. I'm clearly talking about the other point of view. Okay. The main reason that this is believed is because regional languages or dialects do not add to the nation's economic growth, while international languages might. So that's my main point. That is to say, investing in English tuition or projects rather than learning, it should be niche, not miche. Niche languages such as Welsh or Gaelic will enable these people to be more competitive in the workplace. This is why some people say that rather than spending public funds on small minority groups, these things should be privately funded or not at all. Okay, so again, what I've done is I've got my main idea. Okay, so here the main idea is to do with economic growth. And I've given a clear example of what I meant by that, again referring to some minority languages. So Welsh is the language not everyone, but some people speak in Wales. It's the language that everyone would have spoken in Britain about 2,000 years ago, maybe. And Gaelic is a similar language to Welsh that is spoken in Scotland. And Gaelic is very much like the language spoken in Ireland. Now, lots of people in Ireland speak English as their first language, but Irish was the official language for many centuries before the English invaded. So Welsh and Gaelic are distinct and clear examples of minority languages. And again, at the end, I bring it back to the fact that it's all about the government spending money. I've reminded the reader of that. Okay. So the conclusion. I've remembered that the examiner is normally an idiot, and I need to tell them clearly that I'm talking about the conclusion. So in conclusion, although both these points of view have their merits, I strongly believe that it is not the responsibility of the majority to save the culture and language of the minority. If a nation can become rich through speaking a global language, they may in fact be in a better position to save these languages at a future point in time. Okay, so yeah, it's true. English is now the lingua franca. That's true. Okay, so I just want to point out a few things here. This is a really good sentence to copy, to use, okay? Although both these points of view have their merit, I strongly believe, I strongly disagree with, I strongly agree with this idea. This is a nice sentence to use. Although these ideas are good ideas, I actually think this. And I've clearly, let's underline it, that is my opinion. I'm going to get points for this because it's very clear what I'm talking about, okay? And yeah, and just here, I've given an example of when I said, don't write the essay that you think is true, write the easiest essay. Now, I personally think we should spend a lot of money on preserving minority languages. But in this essay, it's easier to write that it's not the priority. So that's what I did, okay? And I just left with a little recommendation at the end. Because I am a native speaker, it's clear from what I've written why I have that opinion. And I can use this as my evidence. Even though I didn't talk about spending money in the future, I did talk about economic growth as an argument. So that kind of matches up. Yeah. Okay, so this is the essay for today. Just talking about exactly how to structure a discussion essay. Okay, so if you're going to write a discussion essay, this is what you do. You write 2 to 4 sentences in the introduction. The first sentence, give the context, rephrase the question, this part. In the second sentence, write your thesis. Your thesis, 99% of the time for a discussion essay will be, in this essay, I will discuss both these views and give my own opinion. Okay, and just to prove that, what did I write in my model answer? In this essay, I will explore both these points of view and give my own perspective on this issue. It's almost exactly the same thing every single time. In the body of the essay for this type, in one of the body paragraphs, you write about the first view, giving at least one reason that somebody thinks that. Not why you think it, but why somebody else does. And always give supporting sentences where you explain, expand, and give examples. The second paragraph in the body is almost the same, but for the second viewpoint. Main idea, explain, expand, and give examples. And conclusion, write 2 to 4 sentences, giving your own opinion and why you think that. Okay. So yeah, the essay at the end. Now, I think it would be a band 9, and that is because, as a native speaker, I haven't made any mistakes. I have stuck to the question. I've explored it fully enough, and I've used high-level grammar and some high-level vocabulary. Now, not every native Ragal would actually get a band 9. Normally, a native speaker with no IELTS training probably would get an 8. So yeah, I'm going to say that's a band 9, but if you find evidence to the contrary, you can let me know. But yeah, I'm very confident if you were to write something similar to this, you would be getting a band 9 for writing. Okay, are there any questions before we end? Now, if you're joining us again tomorrow, Michael will do an afternoon class, hopefully. That's going to be scheduled. I will be back on Friday, and then we're going to try and to do one more live stream on Saturday. Now, if there's anything that you would like us to talk about, leave a comment in the chat, leave a comment on any video on the channel, just asking us. You are in a very good position right now, because there's not many people watching the videos, so if you ask to see something, we are going to do it just for you guys. So if there's anything you would like to see on the channel, leave a comment on any video. And if you want us to mark your essay, if you want to have a go at this essay, you can send your answers to the email address above my head, corrections@IELTSgrind.com, and we will do that. But for now, I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.